One of the things that is often overlooked in boating is making sure before you get out there on the water that you've got the correct tool for the job. Now that can mean many different things in boating. And one thing's for sure when you're out there on the water, if you do not have the correct tool for the job, things are not going to go according to plan. And today we're going to discuss that. Welcome back, crew, to this week's episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. Now, the first tool you should always look for when you're heading out to enjoy some water time is that you've got the correct boat for what you want to accomplish while you're out there on the water. Now, some of the things you'll want to consider as you're trying to determine what that correct boat is going to be is what you actually plan to do when you're out there on the water. So, for example, if you plan to do water sports, or maybe you're more of that kind of person who wants to go fishing, or if you just want to sandbar hop, you're going to want to try and select a boat that will fit those needs. And of course, you're also going to want to consider where you're boating at. If you boat in an area that's exceptionally shallow, you're also going to want to make sure you get a boat that can kind of handle that task. Something that definitely doesn't need a whole lot of draft. Now, another thing you'll want to consider when you're trying to select that boat is who's going with you on the vessel. And this is an important one to consider and one that people overlook quite often, but you definitely want to get a boat that can handle the amount of people you're going to have out on the vessel with you. And of course, if you think you're going to be boating a lot more just by yourself and it's only going to be you probably want to get a smaller vessel, something that's easier for you to manage on your own when you go, because nothing stinks more than getting a big boat and all of a sudden realizing that that vessel is too much for you to handle by yourself. All of a sudden, it becomes a chore to go boating because you don't want to get out there and have to do all the work on that large boat on your own. Now, as we mentioned a little earlier, when you're selecting a boat, you're going to want to decide what's important to you about that vessel. I mean, for example, right here, you couldn't really do this with an inboard. So if you're one of those guys who's fun-loving, wants to get out there and mess with the tourists, you better make sure you grab an outboard boat. Or maybe you're that crew that wants to get out there and enjoy some fishing. Now, when you're going to select a fishing boat, there's still several things you need to consider. You don't just want to go to your local Bass Pro Shops and grab the first bass boat you see. Again, all the rules apply. You're going to want to consider who is coming with you and what you plan to do while you're out there on the boat. And make sure the boat's got the correct features you need for when the fishing's slow. Now, another thing you'll want to look at when selecting a fishing vessel is trying to determine what kind of fishing you're going to do. As we know, all fishing boats are not created equal, but that also goes with fish, as all fish are not created equal as well. I mean, if you're out there trying to grab a couple 100-pound tuna, you're definitely going to need a bigger vessel to do that than just some bass boat you pick up from your random neighbor off of Marketplace. So if you're going out there expecting to get some big game fish, you're probably going to want to get a boat that is set up for that. Another thing you'll want to consider if you're going offshore is buying a boat that's got the correct range for you. Many times I see people who buy vessels and don't even take the fuel capacity into consideration, and it's a very key one. It doesn't even have to be about fishing. Maybe you're one of those adventure boaters who likes to just get out there, go some long distances, and spend a long time on the boat, and if you're doing that, again, you need to make sure you've got the range to accomplish the tasks that you want to accomplish while you're out there boating. Now, once you've decided what boat it is you want, the next thing you're going to want to do is make sure you have the correct equipment for everything you plan on doing while you're out there on the water. And this can go into many different things. It's not always just about the boat, even though there is going to be plenty of optional equipment and things you're going to want to start buying for that vessel as soon as you get it. But one of the first decisions you'll have to make as you're selecting a vessel is going to be, do you need a trailer or not? Do you plan on being one of those marina rats where the boat's just going to sit there in the water or stay high and dry in a dry rack, or are you going to plan on towing that boat down to the boat ramp every single time you want to get out there on the water? So if you're getting a trailer, you're going to need several other things as well. You'll want to make sure that you buy safety straps, maybe a spare tire just in case things go wrong, spare hubs. Trailers really can be quite the pain when it comes to boating. One of the other things you'll want to do when you're selecting a trailer is make sure you select the right trailer for the task you plan on accomplishing. For example, if you wind up with a pontoon boat or a catamaran, you're going to need a little different setup than if you had a V-hull. Next, you're going to want to make sure you have at least some basic safety equipment. Things like fenders are always a good idea to make sure you don't get a little dock rash around the dock. You're also going to want to make sure you have an anchor on your vessel that's properly set up for the boat that you have. And then of course there will be things like life jackets and other important safety equipment that you must have on board your vessel. There is a little bit of a hidden cost of boating. You don't just buy the boat and you're done. You're going to want to make sure you have everything you need on that vessel so you can go out there and enjoy yourself and have a good time and stay safe on the water. And again, you'll want to consider what you're doing on the boat because safety equipment requirements do vary by vessel, by size, but also by what body of water you're on. For example, if you're going offshore, you may need a flare gun versus if you're on your local lake, you might not. And then of course there's the cost of maintenance.
Stone Carpet wanted to know if I would finish it out for him. I said, yeah, no big deal. Do a little keel repair and buff and polish this thing.
And one thing you'll have to decide when you purchase your boat, are you going to do your own maintenance or are you going to have somebody else do it for you? Of course, saving money by doing it yourself is a great thing, but if you don't know what you're doing, you're probably better off to let the pros handle it.
Oh my goodness. We ain't finishing nothing with that. Wait a minute. Then I started looking, and I was like, wow, them screws are awful close to the edge of the boat. Uh-oh. We better take a look at that. Oh boy.
And if you're buying a used boat, this is actually a question I typically recommend you ask that owner. Did they do their own maintenance or was it done at the shop? Because if they were doing their own maintenance, it doesn't necessarily mean they were doing it wrong, but you definitely want to check that boat over a little better than somebody who's actually got service records from a shop. Now, another thing that gets overlooked quite often is going to be the old tow vehicle. Again, making sure when you're buying a vessel, you either already have the proper vehicle to tow it or being able to go out and get the proper vehicle to tow it. The last thing you want to do is have a tow vehicle that is not properly equipped to do the job that you want it to do, because all of a sudden it's going to be more dangerous for yourself and everybody else on the road. So if you're buying a boat and don't plan on getting a new car, make sure your car is up to the task that you're looking for to accomplish. And one of the last tools you're going to definitely want to make sure you have in your belt is making sure you have the correct crew going with you when you go out on the boat. Nothing stinks more than getting out to enjoy a day on the water until only find out that you brought some people with you that you probably shouldn't have brought on the boat. It will wreck the day faster than anything. Now, this is a two-way street though. If your crew who's being invited on a boat, make sure you know the captain that you're going with and really trust that person before you just go jump on the boat. Yes, going out for a day of boating sounds like a good time, especially when it's somebody else's boat that you don't have to maintain or deal with any of the headaches that we've already talked about in this video. But the problem is, if you go out there as a crew member and get on the boat with a googing captain, you're gonna find out you're not gonna enjoy that day as well.
Nah, mate, send it back. Swim it! Bingo, swim it!
And then of course, one of the last people you'll always want to be cautious of when you're inviting crew to come out on your boat is going to be that crew that likes to have a little bit too much fun. You already know who they are. You've been to their house and watched exactly what goes down on a Saturday when they're off. I can imagine that it's not going to be any better when you get them out on the water. For whatever reason, when people get out on somebody else's boat, they let all inhibitions go. I mean, they're not captaining, they're not driving, so all of a sudden, it's like fun time. They can go out and do whatever they want and not worry about it, but as a captain, you need to make sure you're worrying about them. Thanks for watching, crew. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like 24/7 Boats, WB Docks, Adam Coolidge, Picasso West, Chad Fisher, and Shane Van Valera did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.